Breaking news, the plane crash in the Alps. Shocking new details emerging this morning from that voice recorder.
Just incredible, Robin. Prosecutors now revealing that the co-pilot locked the captain out of the cockpit, and they do believe that he intentionally flew that jet filled with 150 people right into that mountain.
We want to take a look at the staging area right now, a few miles from the crash site. Families of the victims arriving there this morning. They're expected to hold a mountainside vigil. We have full team coverage of these developments this morning, beginning right here with ABC's David Curley. David?
Robin, stunning news. This was a suicide murder mission by the co-pilot to bring this Germanwings jetliner down. Apparently he was alive all the way to the ground after locking out the pilot, passengers screaming in the seconds before impact.
Juste avant l'impact final,
the co-pilot wanted to destroy the plane, says the French prosecutor. Chilling details of what happened at 38,000 feet. The pilot asking the co-pilot to take the controls. He's heard sliding his seat back and leaving. Within moments, the 28-year-old German co-pilot, Andreas Lupitz, locks the cockpit door from inside, then noses down the jetliner heading to the ground. The pilot returns to the door, knocks, then starts banging. But there is no response from inside. But the cockpit voice recorder captures the co-pilot breathing all the time, normally, as the jetliner dives 22,000 feet in about 10 minutes. Screams are heard in those final moments before it slams into the mountain. All the 149 of the others on board living through the horror of the final seconds. Even the prosecutor had trouble recounting the deadly end of this flight. The mystery this morning? Why? The motivation. It's not the first time a pilot has killed himself and murdered those on board. It happened in an Egypt air crash and is one of the theories of what may have happened to Malaysian Flight 370, which still has not been found. Now the grim task of recovering the remains of those on board. But it is not easy in the rugged French Alps. Our Hamish McDonald is there.
This is as close as the families will get to the crash site itself. They're attending a mountainside vigil right now. And just before they arrived here in Vernet, they received this shocking news about the role of the co-pilot.
Investigators still want the flight data recorder with all its information of what was happening on the jet's systems. It may have broken apart, its heavy steel memory module possibly thrown hundreds of feet.
We've seen this before. It can be very difficult to find them because with impact like this, that little device, which is slightly bigger than a baseball and very dense, can go quite a distance.
Among those who lived through the terror of knowing they were going to crash, 3 Americans. Emily Silke was traveling with her mother Yvonne on the Tuesday morning flight from Barcelona to Dusseldorf. A third American still not identified, whose murdered remains are here with the others on the side of a mountain in the Alps. A bit more from the voice recorder. The experts say that there was a conversation, even jovial, between the pilot and co-pilot early, but then it turned very quiet, not jovial, really not even a conversation before the pilot left the cockpit. They've just had a news conference, the German airline, Robin, and they say they are shocked, dismayed. This pilot was 100% fit. They said it was already terrible that this plane went down, and now with this news that the co-pilot deliberately did this, they are completely dismayed.
Oh, everyone is. And David, so they could hear him breathing on the recorder, so they know that he was still alive. Were there any other indications that he was fiddling with the control panels or anything like that?
There's been some talk about whether or not he set the autopilot to go all the way down. We don't know that. We haven't had that confirmed. One other thing that the airline did say is that the door is locked and there's a code that the pilot can punch in, but it can be overridden inside the cockpit. You have to wait 5 minutes to get in. And of course, this flight only had about 8-9 minutes before it hit the ground.
All right, David. We are learning much more about the co-pilot this morning, the 28-year-old German. We have pictures from outside his home this morning. Police posted there right now. And ABC's Terry Moran is in Cologne, Germany, near the airline's headquarters with more. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Robin. I've just come from that press conference that David mentioned where we are learning more about Andreas Lupitz is his name, 28 years old, a German citizen, religion unknown. He lives with his parents in the town of Montabaur, about an hour south of here. He's a recent graduate of flight training school, 2013 graduate, only 630 hours experience in the air. Now, the CEO of Lufthansa did say he had a long break in his training, unexplained at this point. But there is no indication of any links to terrorism, according to the Lufthansa CEO and the German Interior Ministry. Right now, Lufthansa is very puzzled. They say, as David points out, he was 100% fit to fly, but he is clearly the focus of a lot of attention right now.
And what is the airline's mental health screening policies for pilots, Terry?
Well, the Lufthansa CEO, Robin, says they are very proud of their mental health policies. He says that Andreas Lubitz passed them. There was no indication of any mental health issues. Flying had been his lifelong dream. He joined a glider club as a teenager, but one thing that the Lufthansa CEO did mention is that their procedures do not include any interviews of family, friends, relationships. It is a standard mental health screening procedure.
All right, Terry.
Robin?
People are going to want to know what he was doing during that break.
During that break,
that he had made,
that got our attention when he just reported that. Terry Moran, thank you. And Robin, we want to bring in veteran pilot and ABC News aviation consultant John Nance and retired Colonel Steve Ganyard, part of our team with us also. He's on the phone this morning. And first, John, to you. First, the protocol in the cockpit. A lot of people have been tweeting us questions about this. Should there always be an extra person in the cockpit? On some flights, we see the flight attendants go into the cockpit when one of the pilots steps out. Should that not be the rule for all of these flights?
In my opinion, it should be worldwide. It is not. It's an airline by airline decision. And most of our airlines in North America do this. But the thing is, in the military, we had a thing called the no-loan zone we used for anything around nuclear weapons. We need this for a cockpit, too. Could a co-pilot or a pilot still attack the flight attendant and do something dastardly? Yes, but the level of possibility is much lower.
And John, the locks on the doors, we saw increased security after 9/11, bolting them, making sure they're more secure. We heard about the combination locks. David Curley just reported that the airline is now saying that combination can be blocked from inside the cockpit. Ought there not be a way that pilots should be able to always get back into that cockpit?
Well, the thing is, David, we don't assume that our pilots are going to have suicidal, homicidal intent, so we don't put that provision in there. There is a provision for a crew member left alone in the cockpit who thinks that the cockpit is being stormed by somebody else who may have that combination. They can still lock them out. That was the logic behind that. And in this particular case, it's worked against us.
Yeah, you can certainly understand the logic going into this case. I want to bring in Stephen now. And Stephen, we've reported here that this was an emergency descent, but a steady one. It could have been going down much faster. And when you hear 8 to 10 minutes, does this mean that the passengers saw that pilot struggling to get back in?
They must have, David. It's quite chilling to think about this. Something obviously snapped inside this young man's head. I think the thing that is most chilling is if you think about that, the idea of pushing the airplane into the ground, flying it into the side of a mountain. He could have done it very violently. We've seen that in the past in a couple of these kinds of mishaps where. But this is it's quite chilling, and it seems to have been deliberately with the intent to taunt the passengers.
Yeah, very chilling. And in fact, early reports from the recordings would indicate that the passengers might have known something was going on for several minutes, but didn't start screaming until those final moments right before impact. And John, I wanted to ask you about something you brought up before yourself. Cameras in the cockpit. We know we have the recordings, the two black boxes, but what about cameras in the cockpits?
You know, I don't see that there's any excuse in the world for not having cameras. They are very inexpensive. They're very reliable. They're digital. We've got them worn by police officers these days. The argument that it is an invasion of privacy is just nonsense because that is a public trust, and they have every one of those commercial cockpits.
All right, John Nance, Steve Ganyard, and we will stay on this story throughout the morning while we're on the air here in the West.
He made a good point about cameras. I mean, they're in cabs and cars and everywhere else. Why can't there be cameras
It seems like a
in the cockpit?
simple thing.